Xiaomi was a Xiaomi. Once got the latest mid-range chip, the powerful Snapdragon 636, and is called India's camera beast, while the other is an Android One device which has been the king of cameras in this segment since release. Given their similar pricing, what are the differences? What's better for you? Well, let's find out. But before we do, if this is your first time here, or in case all the Xiaomi coverage has gotten you dizzy, my name's Ash, you're watching C4 Retech, and if you have not checked out our latest giveaway, here's a card along with a link in the description below. And when you're down there, please do turn on notifications so that you don't miss out on our videos. Let's now get to the comparison. To begin with, both phones sport metal bodies and are well built. Cosmetically, there are some differences. The Mi A1 has the following advantages. It's lighter by 15 grams, it's shorter, it's also slimmer and has capacitive keys. Additionally, I kind of prefer both the camera placement and antenna lines on the A1, but that's more of a personal choice, so depends on how you feel. Here's a poll, let me know what you think. The Redmi Note 5 on the other hand is a tad narrower and has a much better screen to body ratio, so there's not a lot between them. If I had to choose between the two, I'd probably choose the Redmi Note 5 Pro because the higher screen to body ratio makes it look a lot better to me. What about you? What would you choose? Again, here's a poll, let me know. Now, there is a reason why it has a higher screen to body ratio. That's because of the 18:9 panel it uses. So the resolution here is Full HD Plus 2160 by 1080 instead of 1920 by 1080 on the Mi A1. But given that the display size has increased to 6 inches from 5.5 inches, the pixel density and hence the sharpness remain the same. The Note 5 Pro's panel is also brighter by a bit. So overall, I'm gonna have to give this one to the Redmi Note 5 Pro due to all that extra screen real estate that you get with it. Let's now move on to what's underneath the hood. The Mi A1 sports the tried and tested Snapdragon 625 chip. It is a beautiful, power-efficient Qualcomm chip that's performed amazingly well on a lot of phones and is awesome on the Mi A1, but it is almost 2 years old by now. The 636 on the other hand is a much more powerful chip that's brand spanking new. In fact, the Redmi Note 5 Pro is the first time we are seeing it in action. It trades the 625's A53 cores in favor of Cryo 260, the same ones Qualcomm uses on the much more expensive Snapdragon 660. The performance here is top notch. While the Mi A1 has a perfectly good Snapdragon 625 chip, the Redmi Note 5 Pro wins this one with a newer and more powerful Snapdragon 636. It is also worth mentioning that both phones come with 64 gigs of onboard storage, but the Redmi Note 5 Pro is the only one that has a 6GB RAM option. Personally, I feel that the extra 2 gigs of RAM makes absolutely no difference, but for what it's worth, it is there. One more area where the Redmi Note 5 Pro wins is with regards to battery life. The battery capacity here is 4000 mAh on the Pro versus 3080 mAh on the Mi A1. Again, the A1 offers great battery life, doesn't have a problem getting through a day of moderate usage on a single charge, but the mammoth battery on the Redmi Note 5 Pro means it gets close to the 2-day mark. The battery life is at least 25 to 30% better here. While you might have expected the results so far, here's something interesting. Let's talk cameras. Both the A1 and the Note 5 Pro sport a dual camera setup, but the implementation is different. The A1 secondary camera is a 12 megapixel sensor with a telephoto lens, while the Note 5 Pro sports a secondary 5 megapixel depth sensor. The primary camera though is the same, on paper at least, a 12 megapixel f2.2 shooter with 1.25 micron sized pixels. Now that said, Xiaomi seems to have tweaked a few things around with software processing on the Note 5 Pro, as a result of which the colors look a bit warmer and saturated. The A1, on the other hand, tends to retain the original colors of the scene. The A1 samples also have better dynamic range. Barring these minor differences, everything else is pretty much the same. The same applies to low light photography as well. Equally sharp and bright, almost the same noise levels, but at times the Note 5 Pro clicks images that are warmer than they're supposed to be. Anyway, we have portrait mode across both phones, and here the differences are a bit more prominent. Note that the Mi A1 uses the secondary telephoto camera to shoot images, unlike the Note 5 Pro, which uses its primary camera. So I had to get closer to Sundar to match the framing on the Note 5 Pro's portrait. Now the varying focal length, that's the optical zoom, is the reason why the distance between Sundar and the background seems to be lesser on the Mi A1's portrait. Now coming to the differences in image quality, images shot with the A1 have slightly blown out backgrounds, but the subject is perfectly exposed, unlike on the Note 5 Pro. The A1's portraits also have a stronger background blur. That said, Xiaomi's provided a beauty mode here that you cannot disable. Seriously? Anyway, with videos, the A1 can shoot 4K while the recording capability of the Note 5 Pro is limited to 1080p. I do expect it to become 4K capable via an OTA, given that even the regular Note 5 has support for 4K. As of now at least, the footage shot with the A1 is the sharper of the two. It also happens to be more color accurate. The footage shot with the Note 5 is a tad too warm, just like with still images. That said, it is worth noting that the footage shot with the Note 5 Pro is a lot more stable thanks to electronic image stabilization. And where the Note 5 Pro has absolutely killed it is with regards to selfies. There's a whopping 20 megapixel sensor capturing these amazing selfies compared to the mere 5 megapixel snapper that just doesn't capture as much detail on the A1. The Note 5 Pro also happens to shoot sharper and brighter selfies and even has support for a portrait mode. Now that's just icing on the cake. And it's not a half-baked implementation either. Despite sporting just one camera, the edge detection and background blur are quite good. It's also worth noting that it has a front-facing flash. And now, let's talk software. Well, the Redmi Note 5 Pro runs on MIUI 9 built on top of Android 7.1 Nougat. The A1 runs on the latest Android 8.0 Oreo. Given that the A1 is an Android 1 device, it will get updates and security patches much faster. Remember, the Note 5 Pro launched with Android 7.1 in the February of 2018, despite Oreo arriving on the Mi A1 almost 6 weeks earlier. I'm not gonna get into the whole MIUI versus stock Android. That's an entire video by itself. The short version is, if you want a feature packed but different from stock interface, then MIUI 9 is the way to go. If you want to use Android the way Google intended it to be, if you want it to be a little more snappier, then you go with Android 1. Here's a fun fact: Xiaomi's own poll shows that even the Mi fans prefer stock Android over MIUI. Now, that's just a fun fact. Jokes apart, I'm gonna have to give this round to the Mi A1 just because of the faster and assured updates and security patches. Before we get to pricing, let's talk about the sundry, the miscellaneous stuff. The audio via the headphone jack, that's a lot better on the Mi A1, but the audio output via the sole downwards firing speakers, much better on the Redmi Note 5 Pro. So let's call it a tie? Okay, maybe not. Since the Redmi Note 5 Pro offers FM radio support, something the Mi A1 doesn't, and thus the Redmi Note 5 Pro takes this one too. So now, let's talk price. As far as value for money goes, as far as the cheaper phone goes, well, we don't have one. Both phones are priced exactly the same at 14,000 rupees or about $220 US. The Note 5 Pro has a 6GB RAM variant that's priced higher, but let's forget about that for now, since 6GB, like I said, doesn't make any noticeable difference. And if someone still wants to buy a phone with 6 gigs of RAM in this segment, they've already made their mind up about the Redmi Note 5 Pro. So for the same price, what should you get? Well, going by what we've seen so far in this video, the Redmi Note 5 Pro is the better bet. It's got a newer design, that 18:9 panel, a better selfie camera with selfie portraits, and much stronger internals while still offering better battery life. That said, if you are someone who loves stock Android and gives a lot of weightage to being on the latest version of Android, if optical zoom is of importance to you, then you could still go for the Mi A1. While not the better of the two phones, the A1 still remains a very good phone by itself. In fact, it is still so good that if you already happen to own one as good as the Redmi Note 5 Pro is, it is definitely not worth upgrading to from the A1. So there you have it, guys, my 2 cents on the Redmi Note 5 Pro and the Mi A1. If given a choice to pick between these two, what would you choose? Here's a poll. Let me know. So that's it for this comparison. What did you think of this video? Liked it, hated it? Let us know by clicking that like and dislike buttons down below. You can also let us know with a comment. If friends or family, anyone you know is interested in either of these phones, do share this video with them and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Seriously, do it now. So thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech and I'm signing off for now. Goodbye and good night.